Welcome to part 2 of our Superpro Designer batch process tutorial. To get things started, we would select our unit procedure, which is our batch reactor, right click on it and click on operation data and select charge heptane. We would first select the stream. In 2 we would select as heptane. We would set the amount of our stream as follows. We will set the volume to 1200 liters. Once we have done this, we would edit our stream composition to reflect that we are getting heptane. We would then click OK on it. We could also use a set of mixtures, a single reactant, but for now we would be just using heptane in our stream and we would click OK. Now we will set up our duration. The setup time would be 5 minutes. We can see that the process time can be calculated by various measures. We would click on the volumetric flow rate and set our volumetric flow rate as 30 liter per minute. Now once our duration is set, we can see there are various tabs that we can click and change our different settings. For example, in this we would change our vapor stream or things that would vaporize. This is our labor cost. This is for scheduling. We have to change our vent and emissions. So we would go into the vent and emissions tab. Now once we have arrived at the venting tab, we would double click on venting. We would select heptane as being vent out. We would see that the vent stream is already selected to 104. And since no changes are to be made, we would just click OK and next. In this operation, we would go into our conditions. We would select stream 102. We would set the amount as 50 kgs and select our reactant A and click OK. We would set up our duration as setup time as 5 minutes. And process time as 20 minutes. We would keep all other values at default. And regarding scheduling, we should make sure that our next operation starts after the end of the previous operation. So once we have done this and made sure, we would just click OK and next. Now for this we would select the third stream S103. We would change our volume of mass as 40 kilograms for a component B. We would change the setup time to 5 minutes and the process time to 20 minutes. And then we would click OK and next. Now notice that we have come into our first reaction tab, process. In this we would see that our different values are different. For example, this thermal mode, which we would be setting it to 50 degree. Now we would change the various properties of a reaction. We would select a reaction time as 6 hours. We would set our heat transfer agent to steam. Once we have done this, we would keep all the values as default and we would move on to the reactions tab. We would set the stoichiometry of a reaction by clicking on this beaker or flask. Using this drop down menu, we would add a reactant to our reactant side, which is A and B, and a product, which is C. Once we have done this, we would click on the molar stoichiometric coefficients and click OK. Now, next step would be setting a conversion ratio or how much it would be converted. We would set it to 95% for this particular reaction and then we would click on OK and next. So this is our transfer out operation. We would select the stream used for transferring out, which is S105, and we would set the amount that is being sent through the stream as 100%. For the duration, we would set the master and follower relationship because this is the connection or stream that would be going into our next unit procedure, the filtration one. So we click on the setup tab. We choose a procedure as P2, and since there are different operations, so we would use a filter one. This makes sure that our reactor does not get empty while our filtration is being done. And we would click OK. Now once we have done this, we won't be needing any of these tabs and we would keep it to our default world values and we would click OK. Now we have initialized a procedure for our first unit operation. Now we would be initializing it for a second, which is the filtration part. Now in this reaction, we would assume our A and B are completely soluble while C is insoluble and would filter out as cake. So we would click on C and set its percentage removed as 95%. Now in our cake dryness, we can either use loss on dryness or cake porosity. We would change the LOD to 35%, which means that in our wet cake, 35% of our is our soluble part while the 65% is the insoluble part. That is, it would vaporize once left open. Now we'd change the duration to 3 hours. Now once we have done this, we would leave all other values to their default and we would straight go to scheduling part. In this scheduling, we have to make sure that the filtration starts after transfer out has occurred. So we would go relative to another operation in another procedure. We would click on this radio box and from this drop down menu, we would select P1 as the procedure and our operation as transfer out. Now once we have done this, we would click OK and next operation. Our cake wash operation occurs. Now we move on to its operating condition. We would keep the wash in stream as 106 while we'll keep the washout stream as 109. We would select heptane as our washing product, the component that we would be used for washing. We have to first click on this and then click OK. Once we have done this, we would select the wash time depending upon flux and we would keep it to its default value. There are different wash types which we would be using depending upon our situation. For this part, we would leave it to displacement and click OK and next. Now for our transfer out operation, we would first change our stream to cake. Then we would change our duration. We would change the setup time to 5 minutes and our process time to 30 minutes and click OK. Once we are done with this, there are various ways to see our results. But before we go on to making our reports, we first need to save our file. So we would be saving our file as experiment number 1.2 and click save. Once we have done this, we would solve our material balances. We see that our material balances has been performed successfully. Now there are various ways to see our stream outputs. One of it is stream summary table. Now once we have clicked on a stream summary table, we right click on it, edit contents and add all streams and click OK. We can see we would be getting our results like this for our various streams. We can also do it by right clicking on it, editing labels, right clicking on it, going to style, edit style and clicking on the info tag. Now once we have clicked on the info tag, we would see two other tabs appear on our stream style pop-up box and we can adjust where our info tag would appear. For example, horizontal near destination and click OK. We would see our result of a cake stream as 81.49 kg per batch, which is similarly mentioned here in a stream summary table. Now other useful information that we can obtain from this is using our charts. For example, a Gantt chart shows our operations or the time for which our reactions or different operations occur. The brown bar represent the complete process. The dark blue parts represent our process P1 and P2, while these are the various operations in our processes. So we can get our information depending upon various levels of detail that we would be requiring. It gives us an overview of the process with respect to time. We can also see how a transfer out operation occurs while filtration is going on. And yes, this is the use of our Gantt charts. We can see multiple charts. Such other chart would be our equipment occupancy for single batch or multiple batches. For example, for where we take for multiple batches, it shows us our equipment occupancy for virtual batches or if there is overlap or bottlenecking. We can change the number of batches occurring by right clicking on it and setting the number of batches. For example, we would set it to 5 here and we can see any bottleneck that appears. Once we are done with chart, we can see the various reports that Superpro Designer generates. For our reports, we can go into our report tab, click on the options to select the type of format that we need. For example, for here we set our format to PDF and click OK. Now, one of the important report is the material and stream report, which can be obtained by clicking on this. Make sure that you have already saved or otherwise it would throw an error. So this is a material and stream report. We can get about the time operating and the number of batches that is going on. And yeah, this marks the end of our Superpro Designer tutorial part 2, and thank you for joining.